Good day everyone! Welcome to this recorded video for Lesson 3, Routine Hematological Tests. So I understand that we were supposed to do on-site lecture today, but because of some simultaneous activities, mag-asynchronous video just to ensure na ma-deliver pa din natin yung topic. But don't worry because kung ano man yung mapag-uusapan natin in this video is isa-summarize naman natin when we meet again. Okay, welcome to Lesson 3, Routine Hematological Tests. The references for this lesson is the following chapters 12 and 14 of your textbook. I really hope na by this time you already have your textbook so that you can kasi yung mga i-discuss natin mostly in bullet form lang sila or words lang or terms lang. So you would really be able to understand them if you will read your textbook. Tsaka gamitin natin yung textbook natin guys para sulit, no? Sulit yung ating pagkakabili. The topic learning outcomes for this lesson are the following. Explain the principle and clinical use of the different hematological procedures. Identify the equipment and reagents utilized in each procedure. Identify their reference ranges and interpretation. And lastly, examine the advantages and disadvantages of these different procedures. This will be our topic outline, but for today, I think we will only be able to finish until number 2, complete blood count. But, ayun nga, kung naman yung mapag-usapan natin in this video, we will summarize it when we meet again. Let's start. Peripheral blood films. What are peripheral blood films? Ito po yung mga smear na ginagawa natin sa laboratory at gagawin pala natin sa hematology laboratory. Peripheral blood films or peripheral blood smears, okay lang yan, they're both correct, are made from either capillary blood or venous sample. Okay, there are two ways you can obtain your sample if you want to create a smear. Number 1, you perform capillary puncture and straight from the finger, pag nag-form na yung drop, bead of blood, diba, you wipe the first drop and then the second drop, you can already transfer it on a glass slide, create your smear, stain, and view under the microscope. That is very ideal if yun lang naman yung gagawin mo or yun lang yung purpose ng blood collection mo and you will not perform additional tests. And also, that is very ideal if you are in bedside testing. Meaning, nagpunta ka dun sa ward, the patient cannot really get up and have his or her blood taken. So, pwede yun. Maganda yun. Fresh drop of capillary blood without anticoagulant. Another example is fresh venous sample collected in EDTA or using your lavender top within 4 hours of collection. Now, in older references, yung mga mga classic na references, preferred talaga natin yung capillary blood without anticoagulant. Importante tong phrase na to, without anticoagulant. Kasi yun yung fresh, di ba? Walang masyadong artifacts, walang halo, walang chemical yung blood na gagamitin natin for smearing. However, in Rodox, diba, in the latest edition of Rodox, acceptable naman na, or they're almost equal in quality or in effect, whether without anticoagulant yan or EDTA blood. So now, depende na lang talaga on what you need or want to do in the laboratory. If you need large amounts of blood, then go with EDTA sample. If PBS is all you need, then go with capillary blood. Both are okay, both are satisfactory. Kaya naka-italicize siya kasi before parang lesser less ideal sample, but now they're both good. Okay, they're both widely accepted. And then blood films from EDTA, okay, if you use option 2, blood films from EDTA that remain at room temperature for more than 4 hours produce artifacts. Actually, ito yung isa sa mga iniiwasan natin. Kaya we like to do capillary or we like to use capillary puncture. But now, there are many ways to prevent these artifacts. Number 1, edi process mo agad, 'di ba? Kaya hindi na siya ganun ka, or if I may say, parang negligible na yung mga ganong consideration. So, both are okay. Both are good samples. Okay, before we move on, what are these artifacts that we are referring to? Okay, ano ba yung artifacts according to Rodox 7th edition, chapter 14? So, what are those artifacts? Just like what you see here in these pictures. So, one is vacuolization. Yun, so neutrophil vacuolization, meaning if you look at the cytoplasm of this neutrophil, nagkakaroon na siya ng mga butas-butas. Okay, this is a sign of old sample. Neutrophil vacuolization. Another possible artifact is the cells will start to swell. Ayan, so mag-swell up sila, making you think that there is macrocytic or there are macrocytic RBCs, but in reality, old sample lang siya. Ayan, so another artifact, okay, we have neutrophil vacuolization, and then another artifact would be cell swelling. Ayan. And other artifacts that you would see in your textbook would be loss of granules. Yung mga supposedly, mga granulocytes natin, parang ang kikinis na nila. Ayun, loss of granules. And other nuclear changes in the neutrophils. Okay, so what again are the possible artifacts? Vacuolization, swelling, loss of granules, and other nuclear changes. Pakisulat po or paki-highlight sa textbook. Okay, what are some limitations when using EDTA blood? Bakit siya parang naging less ideal specimen? Number one is that when you use EDTA and you produce your smear, your platelets can either clump, okay, or they can surround our neutrophils. Ayun, what are the limitations when using EDTA blood? Number one is platelet satellitism, which is what you can see here, meaning the platelets are adhering, no, to the neutrophils. Anong posibleng maging consequence ito? If your purpose or if your aim in producing your peripheral blood smear is to manually count your platelets or to estimate the number of platelets, you will have a hard time if most of them are sticking onto the neutrophils. Ayaw mo nun. Platelet satellitism. Another possible complication would be EDTA-induced platelet clumping. So, nagkukumpul, parang nagka-clot na sila dun sa loob. But not really clot, more on clumping. Nagdidikit-dikit sila. Again, ayaw mo nito if the purpose of your PBS or PBF is to estimate platelet count. Now, how do you prevent these or how do you avoid these limitations? You use capillary blood or you use capillary puncture sample. Balik-balik lang, no? Ano naman yung limitation when using blood from skin puncture? Number one, nagka-clot, nag-clot na yung incision site mo, di ba? Pwede ding mag-clump yung platelet. Or, pwede ka ding niyang bigyan ng limited specimen. If you would need blood pa for CBC and other tests, mahihirapan ka lang or very limited lang yung specimen na pwede niyang mabigay sa'yo. Okay, what are the different methods for smear preparation? There are several techniques. The ones that we see here are manual wedge technique. Ito po yung ginagamit or pinaperform natin in the laboratory. This picture, again, represents the manual wedge technique, meaning you form a wedge, okay, using your slide and your spreader. So this is a wedge, and then you push the spreader to spread the blood across the slide. Another one is you use a machine, which is this one. Automated slide making and staining, such as using Sysmex SP10. And the third one is the cover slip technique, where you squish blood between two cover slips. However, according again to Mr. Rodak, the cover slip technique is more used for bone marrow smears. Bakit siya naka-italicize? Because the cover slip technique is used for bone marrow smears. Pakisulat, bone marrow smears. Among the three, the one that is most common to us, most familiar to us, is really the manual wedge technique or the two glass slide technique. It's the most convenient and commonly used, and it employs two glass slides measuring 3 inches by 1 inch. Don't worry guys, meron tayong experiment nito sa laboratory. Mas made-demonstrate natin ng maayos doon. Again, other types of method or other methods are semi and automated smear preparation using your Sysmex SP10 or your HemaPrep. Ano lang yung pinagkaiba nila? In HemaPrep, blood is manually dropped. So, ito po yung HemaPrep natin. Manually dropped on the slide, and then meron lang siyang lever. So, ito may meron siyang built-in spreader, no? So when you push, when you push the lever, you have your spreader blades and it will automatically or semi-automated, in a semi-automated fashion, it will spread the blood across the slide. So ito po, yun po yung HemaPrep. In Sysmex SP10 naman, CBC is performed prior to smear preparation. Basically, meron lang siyang parang, ano bang tawag doon? Alam niyo yung sa airport, 'di ba, yung bagahe, ano tawag, yung conveyor, may belt, gano'n. So may belt, yung tube, yung machine pala, magkakatabi na sila, si CBC machine, si SP10, and then when you feed the tube into the CBC machine, from there, ipapasa niya na yung tube papunta dun sa SP10, and then si SP10 na bahala maglagay ng blood dun sa slide, and then mag-create ng smear. And then, in some machines, like in St. Luke's Global City, siya na din magbabasa. Pipicturean niya na yung mga cells, no, na makikita dun sa smear. So, yun po yung Sysmex SP10. Mas automated siya compared to HemaPrep. What is interesting about the Sysmex SP10 is that it adjusts, no, how it will make the smear based on the hematocrit value. Okay, so the speed and the amount of blood and the angle that will be used in creating the smear will be based on the previous CBC result generated. And then lastly, cover slip technique. We use 2 cover slips, but it is used for bone marrow smear preparation. What does a well-made peripheral blood smear look like? Ano yung hinahabol natin or hinahanap natin sa isang peripheral blood smear? Dapat meron tayong zone of morphology. So, meron tayong thick part, which is yung kung nasan yung origin ng blood. And then, as the blood travels to the other end of the slide, dapat nagkakaroon tayo ng smooth transition, no? Or nagiging, panipis ng panipis. And then, dun sa panipis na area, that is called your zone of morphology. And in this zone of morphology, the cells are not overlapping, but at the same time, they are not spaced out, no? Or hindi sila magkakalayo ng position. So, yung zone of morphology, yun yung ideal area ng ating smear kung saan the cells are near to each other but not overlapping. And doon tayo makakakita ng mga different cell shapes. Doon natin, that is the best area, no, to detect or to look for abnormal cell shapes, abnormal cells, and to also count your WBC, ayan, to count your neutrophils, eosinophils, etc. So, sa buong smear na ginagawa natin, most of the time, focus tayo dun sa zone of morphology, where the cells are close but not overlapping. Yun yung ating key phrase for the zone of morphology. Now, in your textbook, meron po dun parang table, naka-outline siya. Okay, naka-outline kung ano yung mga characteristics ng isang magandang smear. You can check that out. Okay, nagawa na natin yung smear. Ano nang next, no? Isi-stain na natin siya. There are different ways. Okay, you can stain your smear. Merong manual, merong automated. And then, meron din yung mga, anong tawag dito? Improved methods or yung mga quick, mga mas pinabilis na method, yung mga quick methods. So, for the manual technique, we flood the slide with the right stain. Thank you so much, Mr. James Wright, no, for developing the right stain. So, we flood it with the right stain, allow the stain to remain for 1 to 3 minutes, add the buffer, and then rinse, and then dry. For the automated slide stainers naman, isasalang lang natin yung slides into a maybe a tray, and then it will generally take 5 to 10 minutes to stain a batch of slides. Maganda to kapag you are handling a large volume of specimen. What are examples of machines that offer, or brands that offer automated slide stainers? You have the Midas 3 Plus, Hematech, and Coulter LH. Another one is the quick stain. So, ito yung ginagamit siguro natin, or yung sigurong nakikita nyo or naaalala nyo na ginagamit natin sa hematology laboratory where we dip the slide into different coupling jars. Ayun, so ito yung 5, 5, 25, 5. So jar 1 is 5 dips followed by, usually this is the methanol and then the eosine and then the methylene blue and then the buffer. Okay, in that order, tapos with this number of dips. Ang tawag dun sa lab natin ay DiffQuick or HemaQuick. Ayun, yun yung example ng quick stain. We have another method which is the methanol-free stain which reduces daw exposure to toxic chemicals. Ayun. Based from its name, ganun lang talaga siya. Pero nandun pa din yung dye, andun yung buffer, sadyang wala lang yung methanol, which is supposedly the fixative of your sample. What are the characteristic appearance of cells in a well-stained smear? How do cells look like? So you can take a screenshot of this slide, and then when we perform peripheral blood smear preparation in the lab, you can try to compare. Totoo ba? No, na salmon pink sila, na kapag ang nuclei ng mga WBC purple or blue, lilac ba, orange ba talaga yung mga granules ng eosinophil? So you can take a picture of the slide and then compare it, no? Also with the PowerPoint presentations that we had in the past, try to compare if talaga bang orange yung mga granules, pink ba talaga yung mga cells, etc. So according to Mr. Rodak ulit, na these are the ideal characteristics. But sometimes if we look at slides, na yung mga old slides na mga greater than 7 days, longer than 1 week, sometimes nag-change na talaga sila ng color. So sometimes the smear appears bluer than ideal, and yun, you might not be able to differentiate the different cells kasi lahat sila color blue na. Ayun. So again, what is the ideal storage time for blood smears? 7 days only. What happens if lampas 7 days? The smear or the cells can become blue or can turn blue. Okay, paano naman, no? Bagong-bago naman, freshly prepared ang ating stain, pero hindi naman mukhang salmon pink yung RBC or hindi naman mukhang orange or bright orange yung granules ni eosinophil. Anong dapat natin gawin? Okay, please refer to box 14.1. We have another reading assignment. Kailangan nating magbasa, no? Please go to box 14.1 and study what can we do? What can we do if or ano yung mga possible reason bakit nag-iiba sila ng color or hindi niya nasusunod yung mga ideal characteristic natin. Ano yung mga saan nagkakaproblema? Sa buffer ba? 'Di ba? Yun. Wag masyadong spoiler. So, yun yung dapat nating alamin. And ano yung solution para maayos siya. So, yun yung aabangan natin sa box 14.1. Ayan, okay, nakapag-prepare na tayo ng smear. Tapos, na-stain na natin siya, natuyo na siya, it is now ready for examination. But, did you know that you can already make certain observations even before you view your smear under the microscope? So, just by looking at the general appearance or macroscopic appearance of your smear, you can already make some assumptions, no? Or may mga pwede ka ng educated guess na magagawa. For example, if the film appears bluer than normal, provided na tama yung pagkakastain mo pero blue talaga siya, it could be a sign of increased blood proteins, and this is seen in plasma cell myeloma. So plasma cell myeloma is a disease where your plasma cells produce excessive proteins or excessive antibodies. So it's a form of cancer, ganyan, myeloma. Kaya ayun, in patients with plasma cell myeloma, pwedeng maging bluer yung film, yung general appearance niya. And if you look closer or under the microscope, you can also observe Rolu formation. So ano yung Rolu formation? This is when the red blood cells nagsistack sila on top of each other. So parang nagpapatong-patong sila, parang building blocks, nagpapatong-patong sila. So yun po yung Rolu formation. Okay, paano naman kapag tinignan mo yung smear, tapos may dot dot dot, merong grainy appearance? This could be a sign of RBC agglutination or cold hemagglutinin disease. What is cold hemagglutinin disease or cold agglutinin disease or CAD? It's a type of autoimmune disease. Okay, wherein you develop antibodies that attack your own cells. Diba? Autoimmune, meaning yung immune system mo, kinakalaban yung sarili mong body. So in cold hemagglutinin disease, your body develops antibodies or auto-antibodies that attack or agglutinate your red blood cells. So as a result, your red blood cells will clump together. So sa sobrang clump niya, kahit with the naked eye, nakikita mo yung pagkakaklump nung mga cells na yon. Nagiging grainy tuloy yung ating smear. Okay, nagiging grainy yung ating peripheral blood smear. Okay, next. Paano naman pag there are holes all over the film? Parang nagpo-form siya ng mga yun. So, imbis na smooth, yung parang air bubbles, parang ganun, or nagpo-form, hindi nagiging homogeneous, no, yung ating smear. This could be a sign for, or a sign of increased lipid levels. And how about naman if you can see blue specks at the feathery edge? Ito po yung feathery edge natin, magkakaroon ng blue specks. This could be a sign of markedly increased WBC and platelet counts. Ayan. Again, what are we trying to show in this slide, no? Or what we're trying to say in this slide? Kahit in using the naked eye, no, macroscopic observation, yung appearance ng smear natin, they can already tell us, no, about the condition of the patient. Kahit di pa natin sila na isasalang sa ilalim ng microscope. Paano naman pag naisalang na nga natin, naipasok na natin sa microscope, nabuksan na natin ang rheostat, di ba? Light switch, etc. Anong pwede natin gawin? So, we can start with LPO. Punta muna tayo sa LPO. Okay. Sabi ni Mr. Rodak, no, most people daw often miss the LPO and go straight to OIO. Not knowing na may mga nice to know information din naman using LPO or low power objective. Okay, so when you view your sample, LPO muna, anong titignan natin? Number 1, overall film quality, color, tama ba ang pagkakastain sa mga cells, and distribution of cells. Nakakakita ba tayo ng Rolu formation? Again, when RBCs are patong-patong, no, nagsistack sila on top of each other, or nagkakaroon ng agglutination. So, dito pala, pwede mong i-confirm, bakit kaya grainy yung smear ko? Pag check mo sa LPO, ay oo nga, agglutinate, no, yung aking cells. Or here, you can also see large abnormal cells such as blasts, reactive lymphocytes, and parasites. And you can also see presence of fibrin strands and the snowplow effect. Bakit siya naka-italicize? Kasi actually, ayaw natin to. When we see fibrin strands and snowplow effect, the sample was not prepared satisfactorily. Ganon. Medyo kailangan nating ulitin, no? The film should be repeated again or prepared again because presence of fibrin strand can indicate clotting. So, bakit siya nag-clot habang nagpe-prepare ka? And then, snowplow effect, yung siguro nung pagka-push mo ng spreader, no? Iba na yung uneven na yung distribution ng cells. Most likely, ang tawag dito, yung blood na push dun sa pinaka-edge ng spreader, tas wala na natira dun sa gitna. So, yun yung snowplow effect. Isipin natin, ito yung gitna ng smear, tapos ito yung gilid, no, nung ating smear. Lahat sila napunta dun sa gilid. So, ayaw natin nun. Kaya siya naka-italicize kasi pag nakita natin tong snowplow effect and presence of fibrin strand, kailangan ulitin yung ating blood smear. Tapos na tayo sa LPO, mag-switch na tayo ng objective. Ano na tayo? HPO na. So, 40 times or 50 times objective magnification. This is used for selecting the correct area of the film in which to begin the differential count and to evaluate cellular morphology. Dito na natin hahanapin ang zone of morphology also known as the optimal assessment area. Optimal assessment area where again, the cells are close, okay, distributed, but ayun, not overlapping or with few touching or few overlapping, but not naman excessively overlapping like in this picture. So, ayaw natin ng ganito, no? Nagkukumpul-kumpul na sila. Ayaw din naman natin ng dikit-dikit sila. So, dapat few lang. So, gusto natin, ayan, close but not overlapping or few overlapping. So, saan ito makikita? Sa zone of morphology or sa optimal assessment area. Ayun lang. Okay, let us continue. And also in the HPO, you can also perform your WBC estimate. So, ano yung WBC estimate? If you just want to confirm the WBC count produced by the machine, we can just count the number of WBCs in 10 fields or in 10 HPO fields and then average them. So, pag-usapan na lang natin to sa future slides. But, yes, you perform your WBC estimate using the high power objective. And lastly, dun na tayo sa OIO. So when you go to OIO, this is the time you can perform or you can describe RBC, WBC, and platelet morphology and perform your platelet estimate. Again, this is a picture of your optimal assessment area, usually or your zone of morphology where the cells are close but not overlapping or few lang po, few to none ang nag-overlap. Okay, so I think we can discuss a few more slides before I end. So, discuss lang muna natin. Our next part would be WBC differential count. So, dahil pinag-uusapan na din naman natin ang peripheral blood smear, proceed na din tayo sa ating next test, which is the WBC differential count. So, this is the estimation of the number of each WBC type in a well-prepared smear. And then again, where do we examine this? We examine this in OIO. Okay, we examine this in oil immersion objective. Okay, ano yung purpose ng WBC differential count? Okay, if you remember from our lesson 1, each type of WBC has its own function, diba po? So, meron tayong for bacterial, for viral, for allergy, for parasitic. So, by checking or performing differential count, this will help the doctor to determine the source of infection or the nature of infection or kung ano ba talaga yung condition ni patient. Kasi when you just look at the WBC count, it's very generic. Mataas, okay, may infection, thank you so much. Pero anong klaseng infection? Malalaman lang natin yon by checking kung sinong WBC ba ang pinaka naging hyperactive or pinaka nag-respond doon sa infection na yon. So by checking which WBC yung nag-respond the most, then we can know if it's bacterial, viral, parasitic, or others. Yun yung purpose ng WBC differential count. Okay, how many WBC should you count and differentiate? If the CBC result is normal, like 3.6 to 10.6 by 10 to 9 power per liter of blood, then you can count the 100 WBC. But if there is low WBC count, kakarumpot lang yung WBC, to decrease ng 3.6, anong pwede natin gawin? 50 lang. Konti na nga lang, pahihirapan pa ba natin sarili natin? Konti na lang sila. So, okay na yung 50. 50 WBC, just multiply the result by 2. Paano naman kapag high WBC count? So, sa sobrang dami, kailangan naka-proportion, then kailangan meron tayong good representative sample lahat ng WBC na yon. So, tataasan din natin. So, pag high WBC count, we count 200 WBCs. And pag super taas na, 100 by 10 to the 9 power per liter of blood, ganun din, we should have a good representative. Mas mataas din yung cells na bibilangin natin. Approximately 300 to 400 WBC. Again, pag normal lang, sakto lang, 100. Pag konti, huwag pahirapan, 50 na lang. I-times 2. Pag sobrang dami, kailangan good representative, 200. Pag sobrang dami, good representative, 300 to 400 WBC. Kawawa ka naman, no? Anong oras ka na matatapos? Parang isang oras ka na nasa microscope pag 300 to 400 WBC. Okay, we also have automated machines. So, CellaVision DM96 can perform your WBC differential count for you. Okay, next. Okay, punta na tayo sa complete blood count. Siguro tapusin lang natin tong test na to. And then we'll just continue when we meet on-site. So what is the complete blood count? Complete blood count refers to a panel of hematological tests that contain the following parameters: RBC, WBC platelet count, WBC differential count, and RBC indices. And complete blood count is a very good screening test for disease. In fact, di ba, yung tignan nyo na lang yung physical examination nyo bago kayo nag-third year. Di ba, CBC ang pinaka-importante doon kasi CBC can tell the physician a lot about your health status. So, that is why CBC is also one of the most requested tests in the laboratory. At pag tumitingin tayo ng census ng lab, sila talaga yung pinakamadami. So, it's a good screening test for disease. How do we interpret CBC results? If you will be a doctor, no, in the future, step number 1, okay, or phase number 1, tignan muna natin yung individual results nila. So, individual parameter RBC count, tignan, WBC, MCV, MCHC. The numbers and descriptions generated by the testing are summarized using appropriate terminology. So, ano ba to? Anemia ba to? Kasi mababa yung hemoglobin. Ano ba to? Thrombocytopenia ba to? Kasi mababa yung platelet. So, tignan mo lang sila isa-isa. After that, recognize a pattern of results. So, low RBC count, tapos low din yung hemoglobin, tapos low din yung hematocrit. So, with this pattern, anong disease kaya yung pwede kong ma-diagnose dito as a physician? So, yun yung step 2 natin. Recognize a pattern of results consistent with various diseases to be able to narrow the diagnosis for the given patient, or perhaps even to pinpoint it so that appropriate follow-up testing or treatment can be recommended. So again, paano magbasa ng CBC? Step number 1, tignan ang bawat result, i-classify, decreased, increased, etc. Next, look at it as a whole. So, tignan ang pattern of results, sino yung mga magkakatulad or magkaka-correlated, and then narrow down your diagnosis, and then ayun na. So, yun na yung interpretation mo ng CBC. Although tayong mga medtech, we only perform, it's actually the physician who interprets. In the previous lesson, in lesson 1, we already talked about the RBC parameters, diba? Like MCV, MCHC. So, paano naman pag WBC? In a complete blood count, it usually gives the total WBC count, the WBC differential count, okay, and sometimes, no, the WBC morphology. For RBC naman, ito din yun. Medyo na-discuss na natin to, guys. Dapat alam natin to. RBC count, hemoglobin, hematocrit, RBC indices, ayan, MCV, MCH, MCHC, and RDW. O, diba? Napag-usapan na po natin sila. So, later on, pag nabalikan natin at nag-practice problem tayo, dapat, alam na natin. Reading assignment. Before we proceed, please take a look at the reference ranges. I think this is found at the back cover. Book, parang nasa front cover or back cover. Basta yung cover, yung opposite side nun. Ayan. Makakita mo sila doon. So, paki-check picturean and then start familiarizing yourself, no, with the different reference ranges. So, that is for complete blood count. Okay, extend lang natin ng konti. So, kung ito yung complete blood count, ito ay automated na. Okay, automated na siya. Pero before we had the automated machines, we used manual cell count. Okay, medyo na-discuss din natin to in lesson 1. So, ano po yung manual cell count? It's also known as hemocytometry, and it determines the number of cells per UL or liter of blood and it is performed using the hemocytometer, calibrated pipettes, and diluents. Again, before nagkaroon tayo ng Sysmex, HiCell, we manually perform RBC count and WBC count. Okay, so ano yung tawag sa mga equipment na to? Ito yung hemocytometer or yung counting chamber. Ito yung pipette kung saan natin dinidilute yung sample. If you remember yung 1:200, 1:20 dilution, dito po yung ginagawa. And then, ang pinaka-importante, saan natin dinidilute yung blood sample? So, sa diluent. And different diluents are used for different purpose. Kung RBC man yan or WBC, we use specific types of diluent. So, ano yung three main components ng hemocytometry or manual cell count? Neubauer or hemocytometer or Neubauer counting chamber, Thoma pipette, and diluent. There are different kinds of hemocytometers in the market, but the one that we use is the Neubauer counting chamber or the improved Neubauer counting chamber. Again, which among the different hemocytometers do we use in the hematology laboratory? It's the Neubauer or improved Neubauer counting chamber. Okay, these are the pipettes that we use. Again, they are called Thoma pipette, the RBC and WBC Thoma pipette. How do you know which is which? The RBC pipette has a red bead, while the WBC pipette has a white bead. Ayun. Tapos, yung markings nila different din kasi may kinalaman siya sa dilution. So, for RBC pipette, you would usually see 101 here. But for WBC pipette, you would see 11. Okay, the number 11 here. So, they differ based on the color of the bead and also the markings on the pipette. And then, ang third ingredient natin is the diluting fluid. So, the diluting fluid is used to disperse blood cells to facilitate their counting. And for RBC diluting fluids, the ideal is isotonic solutions. While for WBC diluting fluids, the ideal solution is hypotonic. So, what are these two terms? When you say isotonic, okay, the concentration of the solution is equal to that of the blood, and so there would be no exchange of water at hindi maglalais or makakrenate ang ating cells. So, yun yung isotonic. But in hypotonic solutions naman, it is usually less concentrated, okay, than our blood sample, and the result would be the water would enter the cells, causing them to burst and improving the visualization of your WBC. So again, sa WBC diluting fluids natin, gumagamit tayo ng hypotonic solution. Sinasadya natin na hypotonic solution yung gagamitin natin para mag-lyse ang mga RBC, para WBC lang yung makikita natin sa counting chamber. So, yun yung reason bakit tayo gumagamit ng isotonic for RBC. Kasi syempre gusto natin sila ma-preserve. Ayaw natin silang sumabog. At hypotonic for WBC para sumabog ang RBC at hindi sila maka-interfere sa pagbibilang natin ng WBC diluting, ng WBC. For platelet naman, it can be isotonic or hypotonic based on your preference and kung may specific kang aim when counting your platelets. So, platelet diluting fluids must preserve platelet integrity while inhibiting their aggregation and can be either isotonic or hypotonic. Okay, what are the characteristics of an ideal diluting fluid? So, pag RBC, isotonic, WBC, hypotonic. Syempre, dapat cheap sila, easy to prepare, with preservative action, may preservative, okay, high specific gravity, stable, buffering action, non-allergenic, non-corrosive. Okay, daanan lang natin ng mabilis yung different diluting fluids. Okay, the first one would be the formal citrate or Daces fluid. It is considered as the best RBC diluting fluid. Why is it the best? Because it preserves the cells and at the same time, it does not change their cells' morphology. So thank you, Daisy, no, for creating this diluting fluid. Next is the Hayem's fluid. So medyo hindi na siya ganun ka-best kasi it can initiate mold formation and rouleau formation. Gowers, it prevents rouleau formation and precipitation of proteins in cases of hyperglobulinemia and hemoglobinemia. Toisons, which may initiate mold formation, but anong maganda dito? Meron siyang stain. So, medyo hindi siya ideal no, when it comes to mold formation, but it has a stain which allows beginners to differentiate RBCs from WBCs. NSS is ideal to use and it is the most common, no? Kasi ang dali lang niyang ma-secure, no? Or dali lang niyang mabili. NSS, ideal to use in cases of excessive rouleau formation and autoagglutination. We can also use betals and sodium citrate. For WBC diluting fluids naman, yun, okay, dapat hypotonic sila para malyse yung mga erythrocytes para hindi sila maka-interfere sa pagbibilang natin ng WBC. Kaya tayo gumagamit ng hypotonic solution. Examples of WBC diluting fluids are 1% buffered ammonium oxalate, 3% acetic acid, and 1% hydrochloric acid. So this is our last slide na talaga, guys. So thank you for staying with me. Okay, what are the important things to remember in manual cell counting? Number 1, overcharging or putting too much blood sample in your chamber will lead to a decrease in cell count since the cells will start to fall into the mode of the counting chamber. So, aawas daw. Ano ba, tama ba yung term? Tagalog ba yun? Basta yun yung term kapag nag-overflow. Ayun, umaawas yung blood dun sa gilid-gilid ng counting chamber. Hindi mo tuloy sila mabibilang ng tama. So, yun yung overcharging leading to decreased count. Also, ayun, it is important that we allow the counting chamber to stand for at least 3 minutes after charging to allow equal distribution. So, give them time, no? Para hindi na sila maggalaw, no? Or even na yung distribution ng sample across the chamber and under the cover slip. And when we are performing our manual cell count, we should follow the allowable differences. So usually, when we perform manual cell count, we do it twice. And then we check the difference. Kapag close yung dalawang count natin, tama. Pag magkalayo, ibig sabihin, medyo nagkamali tayo dun sa isang part, kailangan nating ulitin. Kasi baka hindi accurate yung pagkakabilang natin. For RBCs, the allowable difference is 15 to 16. For WBC, it should be 10 to 12 only. So, kunwari, count number 1, nakakita ka ng 450. Tapos yung count number 2 mo, 300 na lang. Ay, parang may something is wrong. So, ulitin natin sila hanggang sa ganito na lang ka-minimal yung difference ng ating count. Ayan. So, if you want to know more about manual cell counting, you can read more about in our textbook, chapter 12. But for now, we will stop here and then we'll just continue next meeting. Okay, so hopefully next meeting. And then for our calendar of activities, I will just announce them on site and through our batch GC. But with that, I hope you learned a lot sa ating discussion. And if you have any questions, we can discuss them when we meet again. Thank you so much for your time and God bless.